The entire idea is very reminiscent of Alice in Wonderland tea party. We like the idea that this cuppa invites you to pause and to slow down. So we want people to be able to slow down in the city and just relax.
Earlier this year, the LFA launched the 4th edition of the City Ventures competition, a design competition in collaboration with Cheapside Business Alliance and Aldgate Connect Bid. The competition looked to transform Cheapside and Aldgate streetscape with imaginative and witty takes on much needed public seating. We caught up with each of the winning designers to find out the story behind the benches. Here, Ryan and Yara tell us about their bench, A Cuppa.
Hi, my name is Yara Silva, and this is my colleague Brighten, and together with the Mad Hatters, happy to be here talking about A Cuppa.
We sort of looked at the theme of care and thought about what care means during a pandemic, and we reflected on that and came to the conclusion that self-care has become more important than ever, and that there is no greater form of self-care than a cup of tea.
Yeah, and then we also thought about the fact that making tea actually, it's a whole ceremony that unites people, different cultures, different communities. And normally you always make a cuppa when you're nervous, you're scared, you're tired, or when you're happy and excited and inspired. So I think we thought it was something that just applied to anyone, everyone. So it's something that literally everyone could relate to. So we had the main inspiration that was tea, but we hadn't decided how we're going to represent that. And then we actually decided, because we quite like playful things, so we decided the most obvious approach would be to create a giant teacup. What else could represent tea than a giant teacup? And the best thing about that type of object is the sculptural qualities. I'm going to pass it on to Ryan so you can talk a bit about how we decided to construct it.
To achieve the teacup's double curve, we realised we would need to investigate and experiment with materials and processes neither of us had used before. As the bench was a one-off piece, we decided not to make a mould to cast the teacup from, but rather create a structure, taking the rough shape of the teacup, then coating that structure with a mouldable material to give a smooth finish. BRILLIART, a bespoke furniture company, provided the CNC cut plywood waffle structure, which once bolted together was infilled with foam blocks donated by the University of East London's Department of Architecture and Physical Design. Once carved to create the curves of the teacup, the blocks were secured in the frame. We applied a few layers of 5-glass reinforced putty, sanding it smooth between each application and finishing it with a couple coats of paint. The painted teacup was then bolted to a base constructed from timber and plywood. Several plants, donated by Jen's Plants and Florist, sit inside the teacup, adorning the bench with its protruding foliage.
We didn't know exactly which street was going to be placed on, but we knew it was going to be in a very urban setting and it would have very traditional colour palette surrounding it. So we wanted something to break away from the monotonous day-to-day of people, and we wanted something to grab everyone's attention, not only by its shape, but also by its colours. In regards to the planting, ideally we want to have the whole teacup filled with tea, but we felt like you might be cold in London, so we decided the best next thing would have something that alludes to the idea of tea, and the how is just the boiling of plants. The entire idea is very reminiscent of Alice in Wonderland tea party, and that's a part of the film, if anyone remembers it. I remember it. The part of the film where Alice, the basic fundamental concept of time is challenged, the way the conversation that she had with all the guests at the tea party, and that's something that really attracted us. We like the idea that this cuppa invites you to pause and to slow down. So we want people to be able to slow down in the city and just sit down and just have a chat or not and just relax.
I mean, I hope that when people see our bench is sort of something that will brighten their day, something which they'll see this sort of ray of sunshine or this like bright bit of colour and see the sculpture, and it was fun for us to make. It looks fun itself, and so we thought it would be a fun thing for people to walk past every day, sit down, have a drink with their friends. Very reminiscent of Alice and a tea party that she had with the Mad Hatter. The entire construction was a steep learning curve for us, with constant adaptations and developments. We would not have been able to create the bench without the advice and generosity of our sponsors: Derwent London's donation, the University of East London Department of Architecture and Physical Design, BRILLIART, a bespoke furniture company, and local plant shop, Jen's Plants and Florists, to all of whom we are grateful for their support.
You've been listening to Building Sounds. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to hear more of our recent conversation, search for Building Sounds on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favourite podcast.